Hey, it's Elle here from the Talent Playbook. Today I'm going to be talking about flexibility and working from home. I wanted to talk about this particular subject because it's important to me, both because I've had to do it in the past and do it from time to time now, owning my own business. Additionally, as well, I wanted to talk about it as somebody who's worked in HR and been a line manager and how to manage that situation. So I found it to be a really interesting journey working from home, and I'm not talking about doing a couple of days here and there or even one day every week. I'm talking about like flexibility, ongoing, quite a bit of time at home, if not at home all the time and working. It's a challenge, and why it's important to me as a recruiter to talk about it is because it's one of the biggest things that candidates ask for now, and clients, that's the last thing they're thinking about. When they're making a hire, the last thing they're thinking about is how much time you're going to not spend in the business. I mean, that's a reality. And a lot of people kind of say, well, if you trust someone or when you're making the hire and it's a good hire, why does it matter about flexibility? It's because there are so many nuances that are involved in this particular piece. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit about my background and what's happened to me, and then talk to you a bit from the other side and managing it. I have been working from home probably for about 2 years. It happened when I made the move, even prior to making the move to Queensland, and I was doing quite a bit of work with a company, and I had to work from home. And let me tell you, when I started doing it, I had done it before in other companies where they offered flexibility where you could just work from home like one day a week, but doing end to end is tough, man. Like it's tough. The reason being is that you will always incur a time, if not a couple of times in a week, where you working from home is problematic to your colleagues. That's a reality. No matter how lovely your boss is or how great the system is where you work, that inability to be physically right there at that time to have that conversation, especially for what I do now, I can't talk on behalf of every occupation, and I most certainly am not going to, but it always causes some kind of issue. And being, I guess, a younger woman and really wanting to feel like I am doing the right thing. What that has to do with my age, I don't know, but like, I mean, in relation to that naivety of not being able to get that feedback, or feeling like I was doing the wrong thing sometimes, or not being able to deliver because I'm a people pleaser to the core, really affected me. I felt super isolated, and isolated in the way, not because I was physically at home by myself, but isolated in the way that things were happening in that office. And I was like, tell me what's happened. Oh my God. Like, and when someone would tell me something, I would feel left out. And like, it was like, oh, we're just not going to tell Elder. It's too hard to send that email or make that phone call. And I learned over time that I had to be extra present, over the top, kind of in everyone's face all the time. And that's the thing, from working from home. When you work from home, know that you are going to absolutely do more work than you would at the office. Why? Because you're not getting meat napped all the time, taken away to meetings, which is fab. But at the same time, you have to justify your work and people have to see it. So, okay, that's a lot of fluff that I've kind of thrown at you, but that's my personal experience. Now, I want to talk from the other side. I have seen it not work more than it's worked, to be perfectly honest, and this is my history. The reason being that I feel like it doesn't work, I believe this is a concept that absolutely can be adopted, but it needs to be managed and it needs a real orientation into working from home. People go to work and they just want to feel that they're working for someone they respect, that they like, and they also just want to know that what they're doing is the right thing. And when people are working from home, I think people forget about that element. And I seriously want to put it out there to any candidate who wants that or needs that in their job. Just remember, every time that you're going into a new space or a new business, you have to be really cognizant of the fact that you are starting this relationship and you're establishing that trust, right? You're putting that baseline down. Now, that's why I always advise candidates, don't go in asking for flexibility straight away. Let them know that it's a desire of yours, that for you to feel comfortable and happy in your workspace. You'll need that in time, but build up your cred first. Get your street cred down first, get people knowing who you are, liking what you do, how you do, knowing your system, and set up their expectation of how you communicate from day one. Because if you can set that up from day one, then if you go home and it's exactly the way you do things in the office, people will not get shocked. And you won't feel that isolation of people not communicating with you. So it's a real two-way street. The company needs to set out policies and procedures and rigor around how working from home works, whether that's a worksheet or whatever it might be. And I think people will like that because they'll actually be able to record what they've done, and they can feel like, hey, these are the things that I've ticked off, and I want you to know that I've worked really hard, harder than I probably people in the office have worked. Here's the information that I have for that. So being able to have that documentation on a daily basis or weekly basis to help people feel valued in the business. But additionally, at the same time, I think that employees really need to set up an expectation of how they actually work and really set up that system of communication and how you like to be communicated to and how you like to work with your team right from the beginning, so that when you do work from home, it is the same consistent expectation that your business is getting from you. That way, that flexibility never becomes an issue, because I can promise you, I've seen all sorts of bizarre stuff, like people saying, hey, I'd really like to finish up at 3 o'clock and then I'll clock back on at 5 once I've got the kids settled, give them dinner, and then I'm going to do some work. I've seen more often than not that people do not do work or do not answer that phone. And it's not that they're not doing that extra bit of work, but if you say something, you're going to have to do it. At least you've got to build the street cred, right? So you might do that for 6 months, showing that, okay, I put the kids, go get the kids, everything's cool, and then you log back on at 5, hi everybody, blah, 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 blah. You're giving them that information. Once you build that street cred, they know that you do things the way you do things, then you can start to shift around, be a little bit more flexible. But everyone has to be comfortable. Everyone has to get used to everyone. This is just human nature. We have to build the trust between each other. We have to set the expectations. And once you actually get that, then you can actually build that flexibility in. But I think from day one, it's really challenging unless you've got this really special, cool kind of workplace where they've been doing it for a long time and they know how to do it. And trust me, there are places that know how to do this really well. Just take it easy, get in there, set your way of doing things, and also if your company is going to grant it to you, turn it back on them and say, hey, how is this done right? Have you had someone do this in the past? If they have, tell me what the challenges were. Oh, the challenges were this, this, and that. Okay, so you can make sure that you're not going to step on anyone's toes. So in the end, it's all about communication, as it usually is. But it's something that's really close to my heart, because I promise you, there were times where I was so down in the dumps and I was doing so much work and it just didn't seem like anyone really understood or got it. And you're just calling people, chasing people, and it can feel super isolating. And that's never going to be a great benefit for you, no matter how much you need it. It's never going to feel good, no matter what. So if you take anything away from this, is communicate, set your expectations, and maybe go in slow to begin with. Don't put all those expectations that you had built up from another workplace, but rather feel things out and see if it's going to work the way you need it to. Now, there are all sorts of things that cause that not to work. Like, for example, there are overzealous managers that micromanage who will never get these concepts. You've got to know whether you want to work for this kind of person. Can you work for this kind of person? So that's why it's super important to interview the company back when you're going through your recruitment process. But I think having those expectations, having good comms will always work in the end. Okay, you got any questions about it, reach out to us. But have a great week, guys.